Therapists of Reddit, what are some interesting psychological facts about humans? Although there is no way to bring back the memories, playing music to dementia sufferers can bring back the feelings. The study was prompted when a dementia sufferer started crying happy tears to a song. He told the care staff that he had no idea why, but he felt really happy. His wife later identified the song as the one she walked down the aisle to on her wedding day. Currently doing my dissertation on this topic. I find it so interesting. Psychiatric nurse here. Redirection is a heck of a skill. For example, we had a patient screaming at us and peacocking, just ready to fight someone. He had glasses on his head and I mentioned I liked them. He said I need them to read books. I asked him about the books he read and we had a whole discussion about that and he completely forgot what he was angry about. Learning about it in school I was super skeptical, but seeing it work and using it often is incredible. Sometimes a small distraction from our feelings is all we need. I've gotten a couple to stop arguing in the middle of a theme park when I drunkenly shouted, "Oh crap, some drama," then I became the bad guy and they walked away together. A drug dealer's sales go through the roof if word gets out one of his customers overdosed. It's the craziest thing I know about addiction. Motivational interviewing exists for a reason. I constantly run across comments on Reddit that say things like, if your therapist isn't telling you to get out of this relationship now, then you need a new therapist. But humans have a tendency to dig their heels in when told to do something they feel ambivalent about. There are ways to help people realize what's going to be best for them that don't involve giving straight advice. In fact, I'd say giving straight advice can be one of the least effective methods for a lot of people issues. And these people in our office probably have a dozen friends already giving them that advice, and they're still not acting on it. I'm a clinical psychologist. Something that makes me wonder how we survived as a species and then answers my question at the same time. People will adhere to what they believe to be true over what they know to be true. Politics, religion, anxiety, depression, staying with an abuser are all examples. Even when they are able to state what they know, their beliefs interfere in that cognitive dissonance will resolve closer to their belief. As a therapist, it's my job to help them know what they know and slowly alter their beliefs to be more consistent with what they know. Too quick of a change strengthens the belief system. It amazes me every time a patient has an epiphany and then almost immediately reverts. All behavior has a purpose. An extension of this, there is no such thing as people being lazy. If people aren't doing something others think they should, it's for a reason, even if said person doesn't know that reason either. It might be an avoidance tactic, a learned behavior, or even their body-mind feeling overwhelmed and requiring rest before they take on different tasks. Following that, if people are trying to rest and get nagged non-stop, they never actually get to rest and hence, never get to build up the energy to tackle the things on their to-do lists. Your sadness has different symptoms depending on the trigger. Getting broken up with or losing a loved one often manifests as crying, seeking social support. Pursuing a goal and failing at achieving it can cause reclusive behavior, feeling very tired, wanting to be alone, in theory to stop you from endeavoring on another fruitless mission. And if you have both, you're a fricked up mess. The more senses you can engage in an anxiety reduction strategy, the better it will work. Like the poster mentioned earlier, your brain does not differentiate why it is ramping the nervous system up, so you have to send it the clear message that this is a safe moment to not be hyper-aroused. I am a parent-child psychotherapist. I work with children under 6 and their caregivers who have experienced trauma. In a nutshell, the healing comes from the caregiver talking to the child about what happened. We call it speaking the unspeakable. Basically, young children know something bad is going on. Domestic violence, abuse, neglect, loss, and they need a grown-up to help them play and talk about it. Otherwise they make up their own stories about what is going on and it's often totally incorrect and self-blaming. Infants, toddlers and preschoolers have the capacity to be talked to about scary things. They can handle it if the adult can find a way to regulate through the retelling and tolerate the subsequent emotions. I've explained addiction, severe neglect, loss, and emotional abuse to 3 and 4-year-olds. They are amazing and can handle it. People who are facing the effects of trauma can have physical symptoms that result in long-term medical issues, high blood pressure, heart-related issues, cancer, etc. Seeking treatment for trauma can help this. Trauma victims can exhibit the same behaviors as those who are trying to be deceitful. X. Having difficulty remembering what happened. Having difficulty tracking chronological order of things, so seeming to change a story around. Behaving different than how we expect a person should react with flat affect, etc. This leads many police who are trained to spot lies to disbelieve crime victims and furthering victims not wanting to come forward. Laughing is a common and natural reaction for many when in the midst of a traumatic incident. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the person or they're enjoying it. Their mind is trying to cope and release energy pent up from adrenaline. I work with crime victims, domestic violence victims, and adults who've experienced trauma. The laughing is a big one for me. I almost died in a car crash last year and I started giggling while I explained what happened to a teacher why I had to miss school. She called my mom to tell her I was skipping class and making crap about a car crash up Mayo. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference between our heart racing out of attraction versus fear. So basically, if you're going on a first date with someone you really like, then ride some roller coasters with them and they will find you more attractive. There is a fairly common misconception that people in severe depressive states are the most likely to commit suicide. The data shows that suicide is most common in people coming out of a major depression who are in a manic state. Often this time period is one where the depressed individual appears to be getting better. I want more people to know this so they can catch the red flags many people miss when a friend or family member kills themselves. It's the same with some antidepressants for some people. Rather than the person finding motivation through the drug to go do things to rebuild their lives, it can give the person motivation to commit suicide. Just an undergrad at this point, but do you remember that time when you were a teenager and you just decided to start staying up until 2 AM or some other ungodly hour? That's normal. People's sleep clocks shift a couple hours backwards during adolescence and only readjust during their early mid-20s. Maybe this is more of a biological fact than psychological, but it's pretty closely related. Haha, that's what I'm doing right now. I am a firm believer alcohol addiction are a symptom, not a condition. As a psychiatrist, I have never met a patient where the addiction did not either fully or mostly disappear after treating the underlying psychiatric condition. Obligatory. I'm not a therapist, but I used to work in a maximum security prison doing intake interviews. I heard a lot of confessions, gave a lot of unofficial advice. One of the biggest things I learned is that if you treat someone with an ounce of respect, like a human being, like starting an interview with "Good afternoon, sir, ma'am, please have a seat." Even the most combative inmates lose or fight, and usually I can get the interview done in peace. Yeah, there were special cases where no matter how civil I was, the inmate was not about cooperating. But for the most part it worked. I tried to treat every inmate like a human being. Yeah, they fricked up, but they are still human. A smile and a polite greeting got me much further than a harsh command. An interesting psychological fact about humans is that regardless of the profession the OP asks for an answer from, a million other people with different jobs will answer. Yes, this is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. People believe they know things when they are not experts in that field. Most maladaptive things that people get stuck in likely saved their life at some point. Most humans don't do things to hurt themselves intentionally. Examples: self-harm may keep someone from attempting suicide to reduce pain or shift emotional pain to physical pain, which may be more manageable. Someone with an eating disorder likely developed it to cope with intensive trauma or feelings of a loss of control in their life. Someone's anxiety feels like it can keep them safe from being hurt. Seeing people through this lens helps me never get frustrated with people because they are doing what they had to do to survive, either consciously or unconsciously. It makes sense. To paraphrase my therapist, strategies required to survive traumatic experiences can linger and continue into moments when they are no longer needed. Your eyes can actually see your nose, and it would take up more of the corners of your vision had your brain not trained itself to ignore it. Basically, your brain learns to filter out information it finds not useful. Also, our memory is so vulnerable to decay that when you remember something from a while ago, you're probably just remembering the last time you thought about it instead of the actual event itself. Now I can't stop seeing my nose. I learned that depressed people tend to have a more accurate perception of themselves than non-depressed people. Makes sense since people mostly focus on their positive attributes and ignore or don't want to confront their negative traits, whereas a depressed person's negative outlook is closer to being realistic. That said, having a positively biased view of yourself, though not too extreme, can be highly advantageous, whilst being depressed obviously has great disadvantages. Also, the mere exposure effect is a cool phenomenon. I find that almost any emotional response or behavioral response as a result of child sexual abuse is normal. I've had clients sob their hearts out, ashamed of their previous behaviors and how they feel, but those responses, as abnormal as they may appear to the client or general public, are invariably classic responses to that kind of trauma, the most frequent one being highly sexualized behavior from a young age. The client blames themselves and doesn't understand why they behave that way, but it's a really common response to that kind of trauma. Not a therapist, but drug use is strongly linked to conditioning. Yes, that crap Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner did. Many addicts or drug users have a ritual. Over time, their bodies get used to this ritual, which forms an association in their brain. Due to this, in order to maintain homeostasis, their body will pre-respond to a drug. Many overdoses occur with the user taking a normal dose, just in a different setting, with different people, etc. There was a case study of 3 H addicts. I can't remember the other 2, but this one lady usually missed her vein 2 or 3 times before she got it in, which became her ritual. She OD'd on a dose she had taken many times before, because she got it in on the first try. I started smoking weed on my Sunday nights when I went back to my room at uni. Now I know people on here generally are of the opinion that weed is harmless, but I would like to not become dependent on a substance to the extent a lot of our trees have, so I will start today to not smoke one to break the habit a bit. People are always kinder towards others than themselves. One of the Socratic questions I use more than any other is, what would you say to a friend in this situation? They would not be so negative, minimizing, blaming, catastrophizing, but don't seem to be compassionate towards self like they are to others. I use this at work. If I'm working the next shift, I pretend the work I have to do is for someone else, not myself. It's easier to do something nice for someone else than for future me. Not a therapist, but extensive background in psychology. Depression and anxiety are actually functional facets of the human experience. It's okay, normal, healthy for a person to feel depressed after a life-altering event or significant loss. It's not normal when it continues for an extended period of time or without provocation to an extent that you can no longer function. We aren't meant to be happy and carefree all of the time. That truly accepting the fact that you can't control other people, only how you react to them, will reduce a majority of your stress and make you happier in general. Sitting at an unstable table or chair makes you feel like your conversations and relationships with the person you are talking to are rocky, unpredictable, and unstable as well. On the flip side, holding a warm drink makes you feel warmth and friendliness with the people you are talking to. Translation: if you need to have a serious talk with someone, give them a warm drink and make sure their chair is level. There's a theory in therapy which I tell a lot of my clients who get frustrated when change is slow. They say it takes a problem's half-life to solve it. If you've experienced a problem for 5 years, say an abusive relationship or PTSD symptoms, give yourself 2.5 years to heal from that issue. It takes time. The longer something was ingrained, the longer it will take to heal. Not a therapist, but having worked in mental health practitioners are usually just or more messed up than patients. A psychiatric nurse told me this when I did work experience. People who have had broken lives, families usually go into psychology as a way of understanding the bad crap that happened, then men stay to help others. As a psychologist, this has not been my experience with my colleagues. In fact, most people I know who went into the field to fix themselves burn out pretty quickly. You may be thinking of substance abuse counselors, who often come from substance use backgrounds themselves, as is often encouraged in that particular field. We, therapists, can stop half-hour work if people say one nice thing to each other a day. We all can make a difference before a therapist is needed. If every person has one nice thing said to them a day, if everyone said one nice thing, but to whoever they wanted, the compliments would no doubt be extremely unequally distributed. When trying to persuade someone, be cautious in how you talk to them. You can actually create the backfire effect where the individual only becomes stronger in their own prospective beliefs and is counterintuitive of your goal at the end of that debate. Body language is an important contributing factor in how you feel. The term power stance exists for a reason. If you are nervous for an interview or other big event, you can make yourself feel better and more confident by purposefully changing your posture. These include hands on hips, wider stance, sprawling while sitting to take up more space, and literally raising your hands outstretched over your head. Basically, confident people take up more space with their bodies while scared, anxious, lower status people hunch up and make themselves small in a space. You can literally make yourself feel more confident just by forcing your body into a more confident body position. I'm a therapist in training. Avoidance can have very negative impacts and can maintain negative psychological health, specifically anything anxiety related. Most answers are not by therapist. Suggestion to readers: don't base your belief system on the comments here. When the OP is clearly mentioned for professional from a specific field to answer, I don't know why do others have to answer. It shouldn't be called the mental health industry. It should be labeled emotional health. 90% of people's major life decisions are based on feeling, and then use their thinking brain to justify it. If someone starts escalating, yelling, cursing, screaming, first give them space, and then talk to them calmly. Recognize that they are having an emotional response and then validate what they are feeling, letting them know it's okay to be angry, furious, overwhelmed, frustrated, etc. By giving them space, it allows the person to let out some of the negative energy that has overwhelmed them, and, let's be real here, it also protects you from getting hurt. Talking calmly actually helps bring the person back down to a calm state because humans tend to mirror one another. If a person is yelling, and you start yelling, it always escalates the person more. Recognizing the person is having an emotional response helps you keep a clear head and not get emotional yourself. And validating their feelings and letting them know it's okay to feel the way they are feeling, as someone said before in this thread, helps the person to feel safe and less vulnerable. Once a person starts to feel safe again, you may be able to help them get to the core of their issue or concern. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.